horse drifted alarmingly in the betting, was, fancied in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and a big warm welcome to the Bar Steward's Inquiry Sunday sermon. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned. I'm in dire straits at the moment as I'm paying out on Quentin Franks in the Naps table. He's been in blistering form this week, and he's causing me a lot of stress with his performances on our tipping shows this week. But joining me to chew the fat on this Sunday sermon, where we've got plenty to talk about, I can tell you now. My usual two cohorts, Jonas Lang and Chris Lord Malvo. Good evening, chaps.
Hello.
Hello. Now, John, just before we get going, you've been on a HQ trip, which is why you couldn't do Friday's show.
Yeah, that was just a blind, actually. I've been out for an interview to replace Phil Schofield on this morning. You can get your Quentin Franks money back. It'd be me and Holes in the morning on the sofa.
She won't last long on the sofa.
No, we'll be on the floor before you know it.
Goodness gracious. Oh, Penny Morden and the Sword, Chris, in your week this week. Yeah. You did a nice column for our patrons this morning, yeah. and your infatuation with Penny seems to be extending another week.
Well, it does. I'm currently in police custody, though, so I'm limited to what I can say. The reception here is terrible, but, she'll come and bail me out, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're like the Andrew Tate of the Penny Morden worshipping world.
But for beta males everywhere, yeah, I'm going to set up Patreon for that. Yeah, definitely. That's Andrew Tate away. He's got it locked, that fella, I promise you.
Yeah. Right, okay, let's go on to some topics for this week. We're going to look at some horses. We haven't been doing that recently because other shows do that perfectly well enough. But we thought, with the Derby and Oaks coming up in a fortnight's time, just under, a couple of nice 2-year-olds ran today, and that's where we'll go first, John. So when River Tiber won at Naas in the opener, I did feel that this was going to absolutely piss up in the Coventry. I felt that they ran over 5.5 on debut. It was finishing strong at Navan. Stiff uphill climb there on soft ground. You could see it wanted 6 every inch of 6 furlongs. So they stepped it back to 5 today, and obviously it looked less impressive because naturally it's back to 5 on quickish ground that's described as time-based fast ground today at Naas, and it's still got the job done lovely, powering clear at the finish.
He still moved well though, didn't he, up until he was really asked for pace.
Yeah.
I thought up until the 2.5 mark, everything was going to script, really. But then when Ryan did ask him, he found plenty over a trip that didn't suit. By the time he hit the line, he was, to coin the phrase, moving like an immaculate machine.
Yeah, you like him physically, don't you, a lot?
Very much so, yeah. He's very taken. I think 6 at Ascot will probably be the making of him, really, and you could see him being early Guinea's favourite, couldn't you?
Yeah, except, and I was bouncing after that because Corals put up 3-1. Not that I can get Corals, but I did send my missionaries out for the church to get some 11-4 and a bit of 3s as well.
Did they take a position?
They took a position, all right, on all 4s. Yeah. Just like the Stotty. I watched that race and thought, oh, that's the Coventry winner. Right there, right. There's nothing that's going to touch that in the Coventry because it'll improve for me another 6 lengths, 6 or 7 lengths on that for 6 furlongs at Ascot in a well-run Coventry. And I just thought, if anything beats that, wins. And then hold my beer, said Magic Carrots Bowie and Will Buick up at Ripon today. A Ripon maiden winner, novice winner. You think, well, we're not got anything to worry about there. But Asadnar has broke the clock, coming home in 1:10 and 4, winning by 12 lengths. It ran faster than the older fillies handicap in Pinafore, although that was fairly slowly run early, a second faster. But then to back it up in the last, it was astonishingly 2 seconds faster than the older 0 to 65 handicap. So clearly, this is probably it is a stakes horse on the back of this, without a doubt. But so the time boffins, John, it'll be like John Magnier when a Wootton Bassett wins by 6.
Vest on, bollocks out.
Yeah, the time boffins be all over that. Did you see Sadnar today at Ripon?
Yes, I did. You couldn't help but be impressed. I think he's got that out. How's it gone off the price it has?
Well, that's the thing with Bowie runners, though. I've known Bowie horses that appear to me to be well handicapped on the clock and by visuals, and then they'll go off like ridiculous prices. It's as if someone's SPing them out in India.
I mean, if that's showing nothing at all, I'll stand tapping, you know. I mean, who's he got working for him? Stevie, wouldn't it?
You think they'd have knocked it in shorter than that, wouldn't you, on what it's done today?
Was it ripping, for fuck's sake, you know? I mean,
yeah. I mean, that was my first feeling. I'm thinking, yeah, very impressive, but Ripper novice. Then the time comes in, jeez. And, you know, it's going through the line. They couldn't pull it up down the back. So obviously a high-class colt there in terms of a Sadnar. But I'm still confident on the O'Brien horse because I think that, to me, is the better level of form. Not just that, but certainly from a trip aspect. I think, obviously, that 6 furlongs today at Ripon for a Sadnar. River Tiber has yet to tackle the 6, and I think it improves just an immense amount. We're talking mega lengths here for 6 furlongs.
What's the breeding on that Sadnar?
A Sadnar is by Memas, so it's going to want fast ground. It's out of a new approach mare. It costs 160,000 in the breeze ups at the Tats Craven breeze ups. I don't think I had a note on this. But anyway,
we're as bad as Bowie's fucking staff then, aren't we?
We are, we're shit. And that proves it. Having said that, right, listen to this. Right? So the pedigree's nothing special, really. Because do you know the family, the half-brother is Watermelon Sugar, that raspberry that was trained by Archie Watson. Remember when they ran it in Sellers last year?
Yeah.
Obviously a raspberry, though. Maybe it would have been good if it wasn't a raspberry. That's why they obviously wanted rid of it. That's why they run it in Sellers. Yeah. There's nothing in the family. The dam, she was unraced. Not a lot, really. Well, okay on the flat. A lot of like sort of 90 horses and 80 horses. No black type on the flat. The mother's not related. So was that the Bowie Carrots?
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so 2 years. I'm still on this on the pod. I would strongly recommend a bet if you get anything like 5-2 or 11-4 the O'Brien horse, River Tiber. I strongly recommend you take that. I think this horse will go off a short price favourite on the day. I really do. I think he's that nice, and I backed him accordingly. So at least if you do it in, I do it in as well. So you can then take the piss. Right, going to the Oaks and Derby trials this week, John. We thought that it might take shape in terms of Oaks, you know, maybe latch onto a potential Oaks filly or a Derby horse. I'd like your take, John, first of all, on the Musidora on the Wednesday at York. Soul Sister, a very, very impressive winner there.
Yeah, well, I think you were going to say Infinite Cosmos roll them out the way and cement the position as possibly second fab for the Oaks.
Yeah.
And then when we saw Infinite Cosmos, we did think she'd run up a little bit late from the maiden, which blunted confidence in that. Unlike our colleague Jack, we weren't inspired enough to look for a long-priced Oaks candidate.
No. Yeah.
So we sat and watched the race, and it was very hard to crab the Gosden filly. I mean, she's come through there fairly even fractions, I would have thought, and absolutely demolished them. You could not rule out a very bold showing in the Oaks on that.
Yeah, the only fear I've got of her not winning the Oaks, and I backed her at 4-1 after that. Like you said, brilliant from Jack Beach. Patreon, folks, 7 notes. Get them out. Get your 7 notes out. You'd have possibly followed Jack Beach in with his Oaks preview when he updated it and said Soul Sister is ridiculous price at 100-1. It's there in print in black and white. Some of our Patreon members have the 100-1. Suggest you look and subscribe to us on Patreon. There's some gems on there, including brilliant writing on Penny Mordaunt from our resident scribbler, Lord Malvo.
Resident pervert.
Sex case, yeah.
Right. But yeah, anyway, it's a Soul Sister, like John says, amazing sectionals. Again, for you time nerds. Everyone loves a time nerd, not according to Lord Malvo. All nerds, golf club balls, etc. Yeah. Soul Sister on the clock was ridiculous in the final 3 furlongs. Only thing that for me, John, that I think Soul Sister doesn't win the Oaks is the weather, and if it's hot going into that week, he's going to slops on. I actually want the weather not to be hot, and I want it to piss it down sort of like early in the week and make him like dither, because last thing you want is like 23, 24 degrees going into an Oaks, and he's just gonna slop it every day, and we're gonna have some sloppy doppy stand-side doodah on the Friday, aren't we?
I know, there's nothing worse than a sloppy-doppy stand-side doodah, is there? As we know, our eternal cost in the Oaks.
Yeah, race is kind of getting ruined. Like coming up, like you said, John, coming off the natural racing line.
We probably need a saver on Sergeant Wilson's house in case somebody breaks in and gets on his computer and enters Heartache Tonight.
What do you reckon to Sergeant Wilson's placing so far? Not the best, is it?
Idiotic, I'm afraid.
Yeah, friend of the show, but we have to call it on the show. It's not the best.
It's not good, is it? I mean, she's just gagging for it, and she's not getting it.
It's like penny. It's like.
I was going to say like a lot of ladies I know.
Do you reckon that's what the display was, Chris? Like an element of like I'm gagging for it with the sword.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's nothing to do with pageantry, etc. That was a subliminal message, honestly.
Symbolism.
Couldn't you just eat a banana or something?
Or a cucumber.
Please.
Anyway, we
marrow.
Yeah. Yes, few women that's had 6 kids marrow. Anyway, right. It's descended into terribleness. Anyway, the Thursday, the Derby trial obviously was the Dante, and we were hoping that we were going to get a genuine Derby candidate here in what basically is a mess of a market. Everyone doesn't know what to do. But I'm going to let John come in with this because John is busting for him to supplement this. Go ahead, John.
Well, my gut feeling is that they won't do it, but I think Passenger would have a real good chance myself. I mean, he spent a furlong looking for a run while he was travelling all over everything in the race. He had to really fight his way through the gap, and after one run where he was as green as grass, to do what he did, I thought he ran a tremendous trial. But I tend to think he'll be in the 10 furlong. Is it Group 3 or listed at Ascot?
What is it? The Wolferton?
No, there's a 10 furlong 3-year-old race. I don't know whether it's Group 3 or listed. I think he'll resist the urge to send him over the 12 furlongs in the Teddy 7.
Yeah.
I think he'll keep him at 10 for now, because I think I only started him over a mile in April. So I don't think he'll rush him, and I think Ascot over 10 will be next.
So given Stout's caution, you would be, and I agree with you on this. Stout tends to like treat horse like if that horse was mentally ready. I think he'd go for the Derby, but I'm not sure it is.
I tell you what, Lee, if this was any other trainer in the country, I would be confident that they would supplement this horse.
Yeah.
And as it is, I'm pretty confident they won't.
Yeah, because I mean, Flaxman Holdings, Flaxman, obviously the old Stavros Niarchos shipping container man, got plenty. The famous Mies colours, etc. Money's not an issue, but like you say, it's stout, and he's interested in the horse, and improving its prospects throughout the season. He will do what's best for that. But yeah, it's a shame, John. It's a shame that he wouldn't, because we'd be all over it. I think 8-1 if he did.
He'll be fancy for the Princess of Wales when it's 5.
Yeah. I can see the odd Brigadier Gerard popping up there as well.
Next year it's a certainty, isn't it?
Indeed. Right, so we're going to move on. But I've backed Soul Sister for the Oaks at 4s this week. I've backed what do you call it, River Tiber. I keep getting mixed up with Tiber River of Haggis's. River Tiber for the Coventry. So fingers crossed that.
I'll just say one more thing on the Dante.
Yeah.
Since day one, I've really liked the Foxes. I am just about convinced now that Epsom's the last place you want to go.
But why do you think that?
I don't remember it.
That's interesting. Oh yeah, I like your angle on that. His action, or is it because he's heavy top, maybe? Or
it's just a bit on the legs still for me. I don't think it's ideal at all. If they were having to go 12 furlongs this time, I'd definitely wait for the Curragh. It looks an open year. They'll be tempted. I can't see him not going, but I can't see him handling it very well at all. If he wins the Derby, he's got a lot in hand.
Interesting. King Power, if you're listening, so John on that one. Go to the Curragh. Unlike Benazir with Lionel last year when the Mad Normandy woman took it off him. Yeah. Anyway, right, let's go on to some racing topics. Enough horse shit. Obviously, this week I've seen more grift on the research front in terms of stopping us all from having a bet and doing the things we love, like the old town square where we could all have a bet and play cards and do whatever. Well, the grifters have shown themselves up again and I'm going to a thread by Jeff Banks on Twitter where he replied to Helen Wardle, or is it Heather Wardle? I don't know. Helen, Heather, whatever. And good old Heather or Helen, she says that the latest results regarding gambling harm, as in it's not gone up, it's not gone down, but it's not gone up. So literally that should be a positive, yes. That's it. There's no more. It's not going in a certain direction, and yet, sadly for us, Heather said that didn't put any kind of positive spin on it, Chris. Not one piece of positivity. Only the fact that we need to look into this further.
Yeah. But that's inevitable, isn't it? Because these, look, there are lots and lots of academics in quotes out there that simply rely on funding for their particular area of specialism, and there's no funding is ever going to come from any governmental organisation if you accurately state the extent of the problem. So they have a vested interest in embellishing and inflating the degree of the problem gambling. So absolutely. So they've got a vested interest, these people. So you're never going to get them to say, "Oh, it's fine, it's within manageable levels, that's it," because the funding will dry up. So all of these grifters and professional victims are, have a stake in saying that gambling is a bad thing and it's only getting worse. So, this will never end when they rely on funding from central government organisations.
I was thinking about this, like trying to be logical about everything in my life, what I do and everything that I do in a day, and how these people must think in terms of to be can we say not contradictory to their grift, right? So they get up, they'll have if you're non-vegan, they'll have a bacon sandwich, that poor animal. And then all of a sudden they'll send a text message on their iPhone that the batteries have been cobalt mined by children in Africa, and then they'll go to a pub lunch and meet their friends, from work. Think, oh yeah, we'll have a meal and a glass of beer, alcoholism, and then you can go through a day. it is astonishing the levels of like the higher the moral perch you put yourself on in terms of we've got to look after these people. I refer to a tweet to me from Matt Zarb cousin. Bar stewards are not blocked because I refuse to sort of abuse the man in terms. There's just no point, and there's no point debating. But it was a tweet that he said back to me where he actually stated, I said, where is my help? Where is when this all kicks in and I'm unable to bet anymore and I can't feed my family? What about my harm? Where's my help? And he actually stated, and this is in the tweet, we've got the tweet screenshot in case he ever deletes it, but he said, well, I care more about people that are suffering harm from addiction than people like yourself. But so basically, he doesn't care. But
he doesn't give two shits.
But that doesn't matter anyway. So what I'm trying to say is, my life isn't equal to theirs. It's not.
Well, there's a hierarchy, isn't there? You know, there is a hierarchy of victimhood, and you are right at the bottom because you are a white middle class male living in the north in a developed country. So you're right at the bottom of the victim totem pole, right? So you don't count. Whatever your hardships you may suffer, you do not count because these people are involved in identity politics. They love labelling people addict, this person, marginalised person, and you don't fit in any of those categories.
How have we? I keep saying this, but how have we got here? How have we got to a level where a TV show, say a Good Morning Britain or a news channel, will want to paint racing and everything we do in a bad light, all the nice things that we've enjoyed for years, and they'll paint a terrible picture on it. Why?
It's anti-working class. I think John's mentioned it before. You know, say what you like. It is a hobby and has always been a hobby of working class people. So there are class elements here. And you look at all the professional victims, you know, I dare say that over 70% are middle class people, right? You know, there are very few of the professional victims that I've seen that I would sort of peg as people, you know, from a working class background. These are all kind of soy boy liberal types that fuck their lives up, done all their parents' money on the fruit machine, and now, you know, displaying epic levels of lack of dignity by going boo-hoo, I've lost all my parents' money, look at me. And they're doing it for the dopamine hits of all poor old you, etc. These people exhibit no shame, but we live in a world where being a victim is great. You know, in the olden days, right, at school, we used to bully ginger kids, right? Used to beat them up. Nowadays, you know, the kind of logic now is that people who were previously regarded as victims are now at the top of the hierarchy. It's bizarre. And that's nothing to do with, you know, with where you come from. It's all about the superiority of the liberals that are kind of imposing a worldview on all aspects of people's lives. But it's anti-working class, in my view. They hate us.
It is very classist.
Yeah.
And the problem I have with this is I get really annoyed when people outside the game that have no interest in the game sort of slag racing off and betting off because they've seen a GMB addict that's took his own life and the family go on in tears and it's so terrible, which it is a tragedy. And
it is, but nobody's denying them the right. Anyone who wants to seek and obtain treatment for an addiction of any description must be given access to it, but not at the expense of people who manage to undertake that activity with no adverse effects. That's the problem. No one's denying anyone the right to treatment at all.
See, the problem is wider implications for me, because this doesn't, like we've said it before, it doesn't stop with just racing. We have to hammer this home to people outside of the racing industry. This has to be delivered in an eloquent way that this will not stop at racing. This won't, it won't be, oh, you're only allowed so much. It's going to go to other areas of life. Why are we championing this? Why are the people saying nothing? Why is the silence? It's deafening.
It's all about victims. It's victims are fetishized now. The fact is, with all the kind of the anti-lobby, you can earn a living being a victim. You can go on the victim circuit. If you remember a while back, the chap that ended up in prison making false allegations against, prominent public figures, and he was going around saying he was abused. You know, he was on a professional victim circuit talking about childhood abuse, 150 grand a year. So, you know, I'm not saying that the anti-gambling lobby is as lucrative, but you can earn a living being a professional victim, because society encourages people to sympathise and empathise, and if you don't agree, you're pro social harm, etc., etc. And so the pendulum has swung completely the wrong direction, whereas it should be in the middle. You know, get treatment if you need it, but shut up and let people do what they want to do.
Yeah, indeed. But this is where we're at, and it's going to be a heavy battle on the fields, folks, because, you know, this is not good for racing in the longer term. And this gets me onto the next subject. The BHA actually think it's good for the long term, because the reports, the quarterly profit reports and takings have been out by the major bookmakers, and they say whilst turnover is down, John Lang, so turnover's down, profits are up. So the BHA is loving that, despite the bookmakers also saying expect to see further drops going forward. I mean, I just cannot believe the level of imbeciles that run our sport.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, they championed it.
Firstly, racing rejoices in the fact that more money has been lost by followers of the sport to Big Corp. That's the underlying headline there, isn't it?
Yep.
Racing rejoices in that fact. Well done, racing. Secondly, it comes back to this moral standpoint where you can't get an accurate going forecast or report. There's shit going in the form book. The rules that they're bringing in regarding race riding are making it an absolute travesty. The administration of the sport's rotten. You can't find information out. You need to be a Philadelphia lawyer to have access to the new handicap ratings on a Tuesday. You can look at every decision the BHA makes that's to the detriment of punters and say it's because they're in league with big corp bookmakers who want to pull the pants down of followers of this sport. There should be a government inquiry into this state of affairs.
Indeed. Brilliant monologue from John, mini monologue from John, and he's absolutely 100% correct. And Chris, I'm going to come on to you here, because clearly here then, the BHA are clapping, like John says, like punters doing the money and wagons doing the money, you know, to Big Corp. When really, how's that going to be in the future when, you know, maybe smarter kids might come along? I don't know. Maybe they won't. But 10 years' time, the message is betting's already a dirty word in many circles. Yeah. So how do you then sell it to the future 18-year-olds that, hang on, you can win? This is good. You know, you can win good money at this. When it's clear that the message is from Big Corp, you can't win, because if you show any form whatsoever or start beating SPs and things like that, you're out of there.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, the short answer is you can't. How can you possibly sell, in quotes, the dream based on that information? You know, and it's bizarre, as John nails it, and I won't reprise what he's just said, but it's odd that racing's leaders seem to be rejoicing in the fact. But perhaps it goes back to one of the earlier points we made a few months back, is maybe the model is a kind of a huge Ponzi scheme, isn't it? Just loads and loads, a constant flow of small staking punters. You know, maybe that's the model. But eventually, like all Ponzi schemes, you run out of investors, don't you? So that's
we've only attracted the mugs up to now, though, Chris, because we haven't had this massive grift that's been going on of late.
Yeah.
You know, the narrative's changing, as you often say. Racing's the new tobacco.
It is. I just don't get it. I don't understand why the leadership just don't seem to get what seems to be, you know, a self-evident truth. I don't know.
Because at the moment, just looking at bare figures, they think they're on an easy win because they don't understand it. Yeah. Because they're not from this game. They don't understand the funding that underpins it or how it's achieved.
But that's so fundamental. I mean, how can they not understand it? I mean, I don't know. I mean...
Because in a nutshell, they're fucking morons.
Well, morons as well that have got no skin in the game.
Well, you've got morons interviewing morons for these key positions. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I'd love to know who interviewed Harrington.
I just don't know. It is bizarre, but you're right. That's what happens when you create a class of professional bureaucrats, and you see it in other sports as well. And although we are collectively no fans of the old jockey club, but at least the individuals running that had a desire to preserve the good health of the sport for future generations.
And they did understand that betting was a part of it.
Yeah. They did, whatever you may think, and because of their entitlement and their inherited wealth, they weren't really concerned about their careers as administrators. They weren't looking for other gigs because they didn't need the money.
I'll tell you something now, right? If Big Corp approached the BHA tomorrow morning and said, "We've had a fucking brilliant idea, Jolie. Listen to this, Jolie. You're going to love this. We've got a scheme where we only accept these particular type of bets. And you know what? We keep 95% of what they put on. It only returns 5%. What do you think, Jolie?" And she would be up their asses quicker than a
Where do I start?
shovel of shit. Honest to God.
You're right. I think you're right, actually.
They would snap their hands off without a second thought.
This is good for racing. That'll be
exactly. Look at all the profit we can make here. We do away with all these ridiculous single bets and each way doubles and blah, 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 blah.
Minimum trebles, like the football used to be. Minimum trebles. There you go. No win singles, only trebles. Yeah.
And the first thing they would be thinking is, imagine the spreadsheet, 2024 to 2025. I'll get Julie Harrington. I'll get an OBA.
You probably would, actually.
Yeah,
you probably would. But as you say, that suggests that the people at the apex of the pyramid have no understanding of
none whatsoever.
And you can see that with the Gambling Commission, can't you? So there is precedent. There does seem to be a kind of, if not a strategy, but a tendency for a lot of these, quasi-public organisations to recruit people who they deem to have skill sets that are transferable. So knowledge of the subject isn't essential, and probably in the Gambling Commission isn't desirable, but you can demonstrate you've got the skills needed to run an organisation, which means it's portable, and that's the problem. They're not recruiting technocrats, they're recruiting generally.
Even if the BHA had to go for the gross profits deal, which they didn't and they shouldn't have, but if they had to go for it, they should have been campaigning from day one. Low margin, high turnover, to keep people interested, to give people that hope that they think they've got half a chance of a return.
To recirculate the money, John, yes.
Otherwise, you're absolutely knackered. You're doing 80 quid in before you have a bet if you take the misses.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing then?
What's the incentive to carry on if you're constantly doing it in?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to pursue that endeavour for more than a couple of weeks, are they?
Well, unless you're an addict, which is, of course...
Here's a new slogan, Here's a new advertising slogan. Racing, you have to be crackers.
You have to be out of your mind.
You do. Yeah. We're literally possibly a year away or till the next government are installed. No, I don't think nothing will change until the next government are installed in terms of further developments on this. But literally, when that happens, the decimation will start to be a realisation. The problem with many punters in the sport, as the brilliant petition set up by Ed, it's stalled now. It's on about 3,300 or whatever in terms of stopping affordability checks for sports bettors. But that shows you how singular racing is. And that should be a lesson to Shergar Cup and the Racing League, that if racing punters don't give a fuck about affordability checks, they ain't bothered about teams. They ain't bothered about supporting a team. So that in itself is there a lesson. But I was proud. I spoke to Ed today, and I was proud of what he's done because, I'm not saying he's disheartened, but he's disappointed. His petition hasn't gone towards 10K. But I've said to him, I said, you've done brilliant. I'm going to tell you why, because you've left everyone like in their speedos, right? Racing Media hasn't tweeted it. Racing Post hasn't tweeted it. And why? Because they're all getting funded by bookmakers, by Big Corp. And I'll not just say bookmakers, because obviously there's some good bookmakers out there, like independents. And I would advise punters to use independents. Support your independents. Support your Ben Keith. Support your Jeff Banks. Support your Mike Betts. Shop local, just like in the real world. Ignore Big Corp. But you won't. Why? Because if you're getting your £20 at 5-2 with Denise the night before, when it's 7-4 everywhere else, you're taking the 5-2. Because it's yes, exactly. We're back to fuck them all. So therein lies the problem. Racing is very singular, and as long as it doesn't affect you, you won't give a shit. However, like all punters without foresight, unfortunately, when this thing actually comes in and it does affect you, right, you're going to start moaning, but then it's too late. You've missed it. You're done. You're on the floor. We've told you for years about this. You ain't listened because you're all right, Jack. Remember when it does come on your doorstep, that's when you're bothered, because that's
look at the Racing Post, how long it took for them to get up in arms, because they were getting on. Didn't affect them. Couldn't care less.
Look at Bruce Millington. When Bruce Millington got restricted, that was him screaming from the screaming. You can hear him.
Column. Remember, 600 quid each way, so Schneid each way with Denise, lovely jubbly, when people couldn't get 60 pence on. They didn't give a shit. They were getting on, weren't they? Yeah,
that's it. Very singular. So, interesting times ahead for the industry, run by absolute buffoons. But you've always got the bar stewards to tell it like it is, unlike everyone else in the racing media. So well done, Ed, for that position, because it showed everybody up in the game for what they currently are. So you've left them in the speedos there, in the muddy, turd-ridden sea waters of the UK, with all the waterboards pumping the shit. Yes, around your knees. Up to your knees in shit is a good statement there. Right, we're going to move on from that, and we're going to talk about watering. Obviously, it's been heavily sort of in our subjects on the pods for a long time, but credit to York this week, in my opinion, for producing excellent quality fast racing ground this week. It was a joy to watch, and William Darby, for me, has got it absolutely spot on. Now, however, I have to point out the facts here. There has been 2 fatalities at York this week. Creative Force of Godolphin, the very good sprinter with the heavy knee action, decided to break down, and the Mick Easterby horse as well, sadly, were fatalities. So it's not a good look in terms of the people that sort of saying this is cruel. But at the same time, is this a problem, John, where we, because of our watering policies over time, the minute fast ground is produced, these horses that should be okay on fast ground aren't necessarily okay on fast ground?
I think I've said to you about 5 times during the course of last week when someone in the media was saying, "Ooh, them times are getting quick."
Yes.
It wasn't great. We got another quick time there, I mean, that was obviously a good race. It's, that was quick. Oh, dear. That's a self-perpetuating myth, because that infers, not quick, not safe.
Yeah.
Quick, and that's no good, because Creative Force, for example, is known to prefer to make a bit of a print, but I'm not knocking Appleby for running it. It was a perfectly good racing surface. And if you're going to add that horse to the stats, why wouldn't you add it to the stats that there's another fatality on watered turf?
Yeah, precisely. They don't say anything then. They don't exactly.
They won't say there's a fatality on good to firm ground. Well, that's what they say. They say there's a fatality, good to firm ground. But they won't say good to firm watered. Like they won't say good to firm watered with the McEasterby one. Both of those count as fatalities on good to firm ground.
Yes.
There's never, ever been a fatality on good to firm watered, because it's never, ever recorded.
Spot on. Yeah, this is the thing that I agree with you about the coverage, and I'm going to name names, including one surprising one. Lydia was sort of very quick ground out there. You know, it's like the old weather charts on the climate change. You know, the weather charts used to do 26 degrees and it was in orange. You know, and it's like 26 degrees appears on the weather maps now in red. Ooh, it's dangerous. It's you know.
Flat earthers we are, aren't we?
Flat. Exactly. Here come the Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar and the Foilers.
Bloody hell, 16 degrees should be in red for me.
Yeah, I'm going to say you're on the floor of that. Yeah, it literally is. We're progressing. I think, like you said, everything in life is towards victims and safety. The word safe, be safe and safety. You know, but as we've said, there's no way anyone can go from A to B in life keeping safe.
Did Mick Easterby, our Charlie Appleby, play a hell about the ground last week?
No.
Oh.
It is what it is. I mean, someone said it about, you've got basically 450 odd kilos of horse on 4 brittle legs, and there's no evidence whatsoever whether you run on slot-based ground, like a good to firm that's knocking the top off, and good to firm in terms of fatalities. Bath is the prime example, and Stuart Williams, friend of the show, defends this, and he also says that he doesn't like the Prosser policy on the July course of the flicking the tops off, and the slipping and the sludginess on top with a firm underbelly. So there's trainers that actually do support this, but like John says, they seem to be creatures of habit where one does something, like the old red hood thing. When something appears, oh, well, I know what we'll do. Godolphin will put red hoods onto the start. So then everyone puts red hoods onto the start. Any keen horse goes down to the start in a red hood. How do we know that's any better? Has anyone got any data on that for red hoods? It's just bullshit. It's just like somebody just say, who's to say that if you've got a keen horse and it pulls on its way to post, that might be a good thing because it's got the freshness out of it. It's got the total unnecessary fresh, because even pulling to push, you're not going racing speeds. You're not going unless you bolt. You're only going 30.
I'm waiting for the interview with a winning trainer who has a keen horse that settles beautifully, comes through and wins the race, and the interviewer says, "Well, that was fantastic. You obviously put a lot of work in. What did you do there?" He says, "I shoved a cucumber up its ass just before it went down for the start."
They'll all be doing it.
Exactly.
Well, it is creatures of habits. I always said trainers are creatures of habit. They like a certain race or a certain venue or a certain plan with the horses. And once they get this plan and think it works, that's what they do all the time. That's why I follow trainers closely in terms of the habits and where they place them and stuff like that. Because for a fact, trainers... if he never has a winner at Windsor, or he never has a winner or whatever, or she never has a winner at Wetherby, whatever, they don't go there. So when they do go there, it's like, well, that'll be up for a spin because that's what they do. It's like the Moors, Chris, at Fontwell.
We love them.
And Plumpton, it's like
we love that.
Lovely, yeah. 7-2 into 7-2 in a 7-4.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Lee, how many interviewers have wasted time with Sir Michael Stout this spring saying, where do you think Desert Crown will start this year?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what price was the Brigadier? 1 to 20?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, John, what's your thoughts on Desert Crown for the year, by the way?
I think he'll have a very, very good season. Reports are that he's working exceptionally well. And I think he'll be in for a really good year. And I think he'll prove that the Derby was no fluke.
Good stuff. I'm excited for Desert Crown this year. Hopefully be a great year for Said Sahel and the Stouter this year for more daft questions being thrusted in his face, which Stout loves, as we know.
Especially from Matt Chapman.
Matt Chapman, I love it when they stick Matt Chapman in front of him, and the look on Stout's face is awesome. when that happens. Absolutely awesome. No, cannot have him at all. Not in any shape or form, which is great because I want more of that, please. So Matt Chapman, please interview Stout again. It's brilliant. Right. Okay. So Lee Mottershead wrote a piece in the Racing Post on the One Show, and I thought, what the fucking hell is he going on about here now? One Show, and it was to be fair to Lee Mottershead, it was a good piece. He's not a bad writer, Lee. To be fair, overall. Up and down for me. Some are good, some are bad.
I prefer him to Salman Rushdie.
Well, yes. I mean, okay. Within his grade, he's a very capable handicapper, isn't he?
Yeah.
I've actually got to the end of some paces that Lee's written, whereas the only pace Salman Rushdie's ever written that I got to the end of was Fresh Cream Cakes, Naughty but Nice.
But that's when you only get to the end when you're having a really massive shit. So you have to stay there for ages and read the whole thing, don't you? That's what.
Yeah.
The Satanic Verses could have been written about me having a massive shit, to be honest.
3 months worth, yeah. Overtime at the sewage farm, yeah.
You don't read Bob Lazar, so I don't respect either of you. Right,
I
anyway.
do. I've downloaded his book the other week. I won't have you lumping me in that category. I'm a believer, honestly.
I thought he was a cartoonist.
He is actually. I've got a drawing of his on my wall.
There you
go. Yeah. Anyway, onwards. So the One Show. Lee Mottershead wrote an article regarding the One Show back in 2007. Claire Balding did a thing on. I think she hosted the One Show that night before the National. Yeah, and or for a bit anyway. And she did a piece on McElvey, the Grand National runner. Yeah. And basically it was adopted by the One Show viewers. Oh, lovely, polo mint, give it a mint, all this, thing. Sure. And you know the rest. And in 2008, the horse obviously, killed itself over the national fence.
Expired.
Yes, and so they obviously.
Well, it wasn't destroyed like in the old days.
Destroyed. So Adrian Childs and whoever was on with him, they said, had to break the news to distraught viewers. And apparently, the One Show recently, this was the point of the article. The One Show recently apparently was going to do a piece on the positivity of racing, and how it was a good documentary about how well the horse was treated, etc. Fucking hell, it's like an hurricane back there. Anyway, so there's a tornado gone through man.
8 on the Richter scale, wasn't it?
I think so. I think there might be a can of milk there. Anyway, can of milk and a monster. That's why I'm napping. So anyway,
carry on.
Yes. So basically, the gist of it is that they were going to do a piece on racing, and someone in the production team or whoever behind the One Show has pulled the plug on it and refused to do it. And Lee Mottershead kind of made an inference to, well, racing really should take this on board. I disagree, Chris. You don't placate. It shows you what task you've got to placate these people. You can't do it. It's like I said earlier in the show, it's like arguing with Zarb Cousin. You've absolutely no chance. They've made their mind up. That racing is absolutely fucking abhorrent, cruel, and disgusting. Betting is disgusting. And that's it. So why? But what are we going to do next? I don't understand what Lee's trying to say. I like the article. I just don't like what he's trying to say. Racing should be worried, because if I was leader of the BHA, I'd be saying, why should we be worried? Why worried about the bloody One Show? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not sort of, it's not Larry King, is it? It's the fucking One Show. I mean, it's look. I mean, it does enjoy.
It's a fluffer for Emmerdale.
Different channel. It's a different channel. Isn't
but I say it's a fluffer for Emmerdale, isn't it? That's what they watch for Emmerdale.
Warms you up, doesn't it, before you get to Emmerdale? I mean, look.
Yeah, we love the jingles.
Do you know what? I've never watched it since it changed the name from Emmerdale Farm. There you are. It ruined it for me after that. But I think you're right. I mean, what he seems to be saying is, it's a common sense response, isn't it? You engage with your opponent and you try and convince them with the force of your arguments. But as we've said, that the opportunity to do that has gone away. That was sort of 18 months ago, 2 years, because now the people who we know to be prohibitionists and foaming mouth lunatics have positioned themselves as being occupants of the middle ground, right? So if you oppose them and say, look, you're wrong here, you are de facto supporting social harm and animal cruelty, because these guys have been, repeating the narratives unopposed for so long. In the minds of the public, they're just animal advocates. They don't want people to ruin their lives from gambling. That's a reasonable position. So if you attack that position, well, you must be in favour of animal cruelty. And that's because racing and punters haven't let these people have the playing field to themselves for far too long. And it's too late now. So what you've got to do is you've got to oppose them. You can't debate them because, as you say, Lee, they've made their minds up. They're bad faith actors.
Yeah, John, this is true, isn't it? I mean, if we were in the BHAHQ now in charge, the modus operandi simply is you have to go on the offensive.
It
is. It literally is the fuck it formation, the 4-2-4. Throw balls into the box and just absolutely just blast them.
Dave Bassett. That's what we want. Wimbledon, boot long balls into the box.
And what you'll find if you do that, and I believe that, I actually believe this with a passion. And what you find if you do that, right, the ones that aren't really that bothered, but just like a bit of virtue, go quiet. Yeah. And the only people opposing you are the vegans. They're the only people left
or
because
people who are funded. Or people who are funded.
You'll see how the crackpots get on when they try to disrupt the derby.
Oh yeah,
because they're worried about policing that. The public will police that. The public aren't going to stand for any nonsense.
No.
The calibre of people that you get on the downs on Derby Day, we could be getting a throwback to the old Razor Gang days,
Yeah.
Derby, Sabini, and all that.
Yeah.
Like West Ham AZ Alkmaar the other night with the old
one fella just
smashing them all in. Yeah,
I would actually.
British.
I'd actually hope some of the listeners could maybe put a note on YouTube or something later on. With Emmerdale getting mentioned, I'm wondering, do the two old gay lads still have the pub in with the mutton chops and the barley fella?
Well, I watched it. Last time I watched it, Jack Sugden were in it.
Amos.
Amos, brilliant. Yeah.
And there was the other gay fella that lived with
Mr. Wilkes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Seth Armstrong was the other fella, wasn't it? He was a poacher, wasn't he, Seth Armstrong?
Yeah.
As well.
Christ. But I think to go back to your point, what John says and what you say is right. If you apply pressure, you will soon see the people that are just in it for a bit of fun will melt away because they don't want the hassle of being exposed to public scrutiny. And all you'll have left, as you say, are the loonies and the people who are funded, who rely on the funding to continue. So whilst it may seem that, there's a huge groundswell of opinion, most of these activists will go away once the acid is poured on them. So I don't think it's, everything's lost, but I think you've got to go on the offensive.
Yeah. So hopefully we can do this over the next 12 months with the new consumer group that's going to be announced, as I keep saying on this pod, and we're going to support that because I think it's going to do a lot of good. They have a lot of power in terms of lobbying, and it needs funding there, and we're going to have to help it because we need to keep this game alive, and we need to keep betting and keep freedom of choice and civil liberties alive, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this pod because I know me, John and Chris do get a lot out of this. Me and John started this pod for mental health, and it definitely helps us on a weekly basis. So we hope that you've enjoyed this over a glass if you've listened to it, or in the car, wherever. But don't forget to join us on a regular basis. And subscribe to Patreon if you feel that you want to support us. It's £7 a month, and the content is just absolutely top class. That's all from me, John, and Chris, and we're back on Friday as normal with the tipping show, and we're all in good form. Bye for now.